Hello, one and all, wherever you may be, and you might be far and wide from the UK where we record this fine podcast, because we have extremely large coverage and getting larger all the time, which is very gratifying to see. I'm going to have a look at the numbers later, but certainly we're broadcasting to about 4 or 5 continents, which we're very proud of. Anyway, we are the Media Beat with Maureen and Claire. Maureen Kerr and Claire Tavernier. No introductions required because regular listeners know them well, and new listeners, hi, and you will get to know them well over the next 40 to 50 minutes or so. Now, we have been having a series of very successful deep dives where either Maureen or Claire goes into a subject sometimes obscure, but often one of those things that we think we know about, and then once they've finished with us, we realise we knew very little at all. So this one's a great one because it combines the artistic and the scientific, which I always think is interesting, and it's a subject of advertising and the influence of AI thereon. I imagine we'll cover the creative and the business side, but let's find out. So, Maureen, you're going to kick off on this. The subject is advertising and AI, and you have as long as you like, within reason, to take us through that fascinating subject. Maureen.
I'll try not to be too long, but I do want the two of you to come in at the end to say whether or not my thesis has been proven. All right, so I think there have been probably 4 significant major strategic announcements over the last week or two with respect to advertising and what I deem to be probably and possibly rewriting the rules of advertising. So let's just see whether or not that is a fair assessment and whether or not I approve my case. Okay, and this is with respect to agencies, platforms, and streamers, right? So let's kick off with WPP. Now, apart from the sad news that the CEO, Mark Reed, is stepping down, they did launch what I thought was a fantastic piece of news and launch a particular service offering that has to do with, of course, my favorite subject, AI. Now, they're going to launch something that's called Open Intelligence. And here's where I think it's really pretty significant. And I think it's actually going to position itself against the big tech and consultancies. And by consultancies, I mean the likes of Accenture. It's going to use its own marketing large language model, which apparently has been trained on trillions and trillions of signals. So this is really interesting. But it's also at the same time changing the way it's now going to interact with its own client base and its fee model. So this is an interesting one. So what it plans to do through its little LLM is be able to give clients predictive planning, optimize the creative, and really look at media outcomes, not just reports, right? So Mark Reed, as I say, he is leaving, sadly, says that clients will now be able to pay more for impact and not hours. And that's a big business model shift and a rather subtle acknowledgement that AI will probably also reduce headcount while reshaping the agency roles here, right? So that's WPP. And then let's move swiftly on to Meta. Now, what I think Meta's doing, which is really exciting and interesting as well, is it's accelerating its plan to offer soup to nuts AI advertising. And by that, what they've effectively said they will do by the year end, and they have actually already launched this in Canada and the US, is brands will may only need to upload, say, a product image and a budget. And Meta's AI would generate the visuals, write the copy, and target the audience across Facebook and Instagram. So this isn't a feature, it's a platform-wide strategy. There'll be real-time personalization by context, behavior, and geography. But with Meta grading its own results, because this is soup to nuts, we think that brands may slightly sort of reassess maybe the lift and the impact, or certainly the equity erosion over time. So let's see. It certainly shook up the agencies. It did wake up the WPP and the Publicis and also the markets, because both of their share prices did dip as a consequence of Meta revealing this new model. Okay, let's move on to TikTok. Now, I think what TikTok's doing, which is really interesting, it's becoming a sort of more, and we know this already, but a discovery engine meets a commerce engine. And what TikTok's trying to do is make the strongest case yet that it's not just an entertainment platform, but it's a full funnel discovery and commerce engine. And we've seen these statistics before, apparently the search per session has increased 40% year on year. 1 in 4 users start searching within 30 seconds of opening the app. And I've got another statistic here as well. 76% say TikTok content influences brand consideration, and 64% of TikTok shoppers have bought directly from the content within the ad, or certainly through the ad. And TikTok Shop, let alone the other activities going on, has now over 15 million sellers globally and did about $100 million in sales on Black Friday alone. So to capitalize on this, TikTok has now launched a new suite of AI tools. Now, those tools will show what content resonates for a brand's audience and recommend what to post next. It will also turn all UGC about your brand into usable, high-performing ads. And according to the marketing spin, TikTok claims that 5 times return on the advertising, so on the spend for Smart Plus over standard ads, will be what they get. So this is a little bit of marketing, but fantastic discovery turns commerce engine and a new form of content discovery and advertising. Now, lastly, let's go to Netflix. And this is where I think it's really fascinating what Netflix is trying to do. Now, I think they're entering a new era where shows and ads definitely will blur into the same feed. Their new AI ad suite will let brands place products into the content after it's been shot. The operative word there is after it's been shot. Now, think dynamic product placement that adjusts to the user, the show, or the moment. So these 2 big formats are going to be rolled out in mid-roll and in pause ads that would appear both personalized, clickable, and behavior aware. So with Netflix now, I think, owning the data, content, and ad delivery, they're building what looks like to be a vertically integrated post-broadcast ad stack. All right, so if we tie all those together, let's see if I've proven my case. So we've got WPP, Meta, TikTok, and Netflix. I think this is a race to own not just the ad inventory, but the creative layer, the performance data, and the outcome definition. The question is no longer just how we advertise, it's who controls the system and whether brands can keep up, let alone shape the rules. And I rest my case, me lords.
Wow. Ha! That was very, very impressive. And gosh, I don't know what to think now. All of these AI bots selling me stuff that I will probably buy. I do, I do have, I guess, I'm going to push 2 words back at you. The first one is privacy. And what I thought was very interesting in the WPP, actually, generally, what I thought was very interesting in the WPP announcement is that they pushed on those 2 buttons, privacy and human creativity, as still remaining incredibly central to a successful ad experience. Now, they may be wrong, but I think we're going to see more pushback, both by regulators and eventually by consumers, around privacy. And I think some of the meta tools and perhaps even TikTok they may be influenced by that. But also, and I thought your TikTok story was interesting from that perspective, because yes, the AI is helping brands surface the right content, but the content still remains created by humans, by users. And the same with WPP, although moving to a completely different billing system, which I think that was the announcement. I think that everybody will have taken a big intake of breath on, are still emphasizing the importance of human creativity. That what we're saying is the human plus AI is better than AI is basically the message, rather than AI is better than human. No, sorry, human plus AI is better than human, rather than AI is better than human. I think some of what Meta's doing, pushing very much the tech angle on this, rather than either the privacy angle or the human creativity angle, is a little bit dangerous because I don't think it chimes with what people want to hear at the moment. So even if it might be very efficient, it might be dangerous. The other thing I wanted to put back in the conversation is Google, and specifically Google search, which dominated advertising, or has dominated, still dominates advertising online, and actually has seen a slowdown in growth and a little bit of a loss in market share, but remains incredibly present. But of course, with AI dominating search, with AI powered search results even on Google now, there's a really big question around the continuity of the Google ad model. And so I think people will be watching that very, very carefully. Although again, despite all these announcements, despite all the things that are happening, they will happen. But when you look at the numbers, Google search hasn't really dropped that much.
Well, thank you, Claire. That was a super, super, super rebuttal. And
It wasn't meant as a rebuttal.
It wasn't a
an
rebuttal,
expansion.
actually. It was more. It was more
yes.
a kind of a different perspective, which I actually agree with some of what you've just said. And in particular, though, I will not to say that I don't believe you've accepted zero of what I said. Is just a couple of sort of small things that you've added in here. But can I just kick off with Google? Actually, Google, which was really interesting. I was at the Enders Deloitte conference last week, and they had the panel with all of the news. So they had actually a C-suite, so they had all of the CEOs from Guardian, Telegraph, Financial Times. I think that was a chief commercial officer. And one stat which you'll find really interesting is the FT has seen a drop of 25 to 30% of link throughs from Google search to their own sites.
Interesting.
Which is phenomenal if you think about it. And this is just this first part of the year, and they're attributing that. And he sat on stage. John Slade said this. They're attributing that to Google's AI generated summaries at the top. That apparently is sufficient for people. So when people are Googling, they see that way at the top. So you don't no longer get the sponsored link. They see it at the top, and then they are not clicking through the traditional way. The traditional links are not happening as much. And so with John Slade sort of coming back with that sort of level of fall off, I'm really quite surprised that there will be some really, I think, heated discussions and conversations, I think, between Google and its advertisers, in particular some of the news sites, as to what's going on there. So I agree with you. I agree with you in terms of. Well, let me add something around the TikTok thing as well. I think there will probably be pushback by the business side, because I think the catch here is that TikTok now will be requiring more of the brands to pay to maintain reach. Rather than once what was probably always seen as organic discovery, is now going to be tied to ad investment. So TikTok is monetizing that funnel that is built, and they may well actually start to, that negotiation is going to be a hard one too. And then the privacy, yeah, totally. That is being ignored by all of them, and I think they will need to address that. So, and I think Meta in particular, a bit of a stretch that they're going down this soup to nuts route, and as I say, marking their own homework as well. So I think there'll be a little bit of pushback.
Well, that won't be the first time.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's our potential. Can we say this, Oliver? Let's wait and see and follow these stories, but they're certainly trying to rewrite the advertising rules in my books. And I think these launches in the last week or so have been pretty strategic and fundamental, rather than just tactical, in my view.
Well, I don't say this very lightly, but that was one of the most fabulous deep dives, beautifully researched, beautifully presented, and with some jaw-dropping content as well. This is the Media Beat in its essence, as far as I can work out.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, no, it's really got a tour de force. Maureen, if you're trying to write a sitcom or something, and you've got, would you have to take into account the fact that you said, and this character picks up a can of beer, and then post production that beer could be decided to be like Foster's or even something delicious like Stella?
They use yeah, exactly. They're using this example of in the
By the way,
US.
this is not product placement.
This is not right. Yeah, yeah. No, no,
No,
no. They're basically
we
saying
didn't
this
do
is
this when we recorded it.
personalization. This is personalization, which effectively says if you're driving a Jeep Cherokee or some sort of discovery car, and you're up in the mountains, in the Alps, and then all of a sudden you're back down, in the valley somewhere, and maybe the sun is shining. That particular advert will be personalized, with one, not the roof off, with you wearing, or the people wearing snow boots versus people wearing sandals, down below. So wherever you see it, that's the level of personalization, and it will be subtle, really, apparently really subtle. Now, this is definitely tricky, and as Claire, we both will attest to the fact of it's not easy to do that.
I
You
tried
can't
to
put a
do it
can of
with
Coke in front.
Baywatch
Yeah,
in
it,
15 years ago.
or can
They
a
were
can
going
of
to have a
Coke.
click to buy the swimsuit. Never worked.
Exactly. So it's. I think AI can help them do it. I think they're going to damn try. And as Claire says, there is definitely a opt-in, or a consumer might still say, "I don't really want this," or that level of personalization. If they reach that sort of optimum sort of way of being able to put the products in very subtly after the fact. Um, but I think it's a great ambition, and I think it will come. It will come, but there will be obstacles along the way, and I think it's fantastic. And I think generative AI, video and images and text now will enable Meta to do that.
Well, I think it's fair to say that something will happen, and it'll be exciting and
Yeah.
interesting. But thanks for
Basically,
that.
you'll be in the car, the sunroof will be down, and you'll have three arms. But
And
apart
Right.
from that,
that's not just a gear stick. Yeah.
Yeah, two left arms. That's right.
yeah.
Elbow that bends the wrong way and is
It's
too long.
getting better. Runway is very good.
I'm going to try runway
Let
again.
me
Google
tell you, when I
Google
was trying to generate a picture of my daughter on skis, and it kept adding a third ski, or just having two shoes on the same. Anyway, but that was a few months ago, I'm sure, and it was a free tool. I'm sure it's much better now.
Yeah, oh, and it's like some of these things you think are going to be amazing, like 3D TV, which just died in our household once
Yeah,
Rafa
well,
Nadal
nobody thought. No, yeah. But
retired.
anyway, I have a whole thing about. If you want, we can do a whole deep dive on 3D TV, because
Oh gosh, yeah.
this is typically a sort of manufacturer push
Yeah,
feature that nobody wanted,
like those
but they
TVs
wanted
that
to
aren't
sell more
flat.
TVs. Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't
Once
work
Rafa,
like
like I said,
that.
once Rafa Nadal had been knocked out of Wimbledon, my wife just simply wasn't interested in seeing a 3D backside, which is perfectly fine, certainly on telly. Anyway, we'll probably move on now. That was great. A deep dive for the ages. And following the deep dive, as always, it's in the news. I'm going to start off with Claire today, who is at TikTok Towers. There's this thing which I don't fully understand, but you're going to explain this skinny talk thing. It's the kind of thing that makes anyone who's got a daughter or a niece or any young female, but it doesn't have to be female, or young relative sort of have cold sweats. This skinny talk, please explain it, Claire. Please tell us it's been banned.
This is a very interesting story, and it shows both the power of TikTok and also, in many ways, its vulnerability. So, Skinny Talk is a hashtag that began circulating on TikTok and not only on TikTok, on other social media platforms as well, a while back. Like, we're talking at least 5 years back. But it became bigger and bigger, and as you've pointed out, it's all about how to be as skinny as possible, and how many calories, how low can you go in terms of calories, what I eat in a day, kind of pictures, etc. Glorifying extreme thinness, all bad. And there was concern, increasing concern about it, but it all sort of came to a head in early 2025 when the Minister of State for Digital Affairs in France, Clara Chapaz, and a local nurse called Charlie Bouygues decided to start actively campaigning for a ban specifically on that hashtag and specifically on TikTok. They launched a petition, and Chapaz did something very important. April 25, she alerted the digital regulatory body in France and the European Commission. And there was then the European Commission started making lots of noise about it, which was good good. And also there was more and more public pressure. It became a big thing in Europe generally, but specifically in France. And eventually, last week, TikTok announced that it started blocking search results for Skinny Talk, which is the first time they've done. As far as I know, it's the first time they've blocked. Well, they probably do block some other harmful hashtags, but they don't publicly talk about them. This is a very obvious them, bowing to both public outrage and also regulatory pressure. And I think it also is showing very much that the European Union in particular is it's becoming much more assertive when it comes to pushing back on social media. They've done it with Meta before, they've done it with Apple, they've done it with Google. This is them doing this with TikTok. It's not the only one. They've also opened generally a broader investigation on content moderation and child protection on TikTok. This is all under the Digital Services Act. But it also shows that TikTok doesn't have as much power as maybe it had before, and certainly trying to stay on the right side of the European Commission, because there was pressure, and there were angry phone calls, and there were calls for bans, etc. But nothing had happened, and they chose to proactively go ahead and ban this hashtag. So I think it's not the other thing to know is obviously it's not the end of it, because they are banning one hashtag, something else will come back. It's very, this goes back to the problems with moderation of content on this platform. So obviously there's still going to be harmful content. If people really want to find them, they will find them, but it will be slightly harder. So it's good news. It's very good news. I think I believe this is the right use of regulatory pressure, and I think that it's generally a good thing. So I was quite pleased with that story, to be honest. Maureen, I don't know what you thought.
I agree with you, and I think maybe the Skinny Talk saga it may just be the start. I think it's a sensible move, and I agree with you in terms of it really then now shows if you focus on the right things, the regulators can have some teeth, in the game here,
Yes.
and I think it's not just a moderation decision. This is pretty fundamental, and I think there'd probably be a move to foot this idea of proposing age bans, under 15 and the like. So I think it's I think it's great. I think it's great to see this. So yeah, great story, Claire.
Yeah, good news. Well done,
Good
everyone.
news.
Yeah. Oh, we love a bit of good news. Can't all be doom and gloom. Good news can sell. Okay, here we go. Oh, we cannot know Maureen. Maureen is at Nintendo Towers, and with huge Mario figures around her, bouncing around and amusing
Luigi.
her. That's
Mario
the one,
Kart,
Luigi.
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
forgotten. And
Yep.
they're all bouncing up and down and smiling and bumping into her and stuff. She's remaining professional. And she's now going to report on the Switch 2 launch. Maureen?
Yeah, so Claire and I were thinking a few episodes ago as to how this new Nintendo Switch 2 would land, given its price point. So it's really going for premium. So it's like just under or just shy of $500. So really, really premium. At a time where fiscal tightening was clearly the order of the day. So we were waiting to see when this would land and what the outcome would be. So interestingly, it has shattered all records. So the launch is successful. It sold over 3 million units in 24 hours, and that's pretty significant, and probably will hit something like 18 million units in the first year. But it needed to be pretty significant to justify the price point. So it does have like 4K support, HDI, blah blah blah. It's got all the bells and whistles. But interestingly, people really have jumped on the bandwagon here, and I think this is for Nintendo a sort of a pretty good strategic leap. So to really justify that price point, it's put in all the good features. But the launch matters more, I think, because of the challengers, and the challengers, as we know, Sony, PS5, and Xbox Series, and Claire, I know that you've picked up some other sort of launch news in the week, and I'll let you talk about that, which is significant, I think. But it also does fend off, I think, some of these other competitors, like we've come across Steam Deck, ROG Ally, and the mobile gaming ecosystem is pretty alive, and kicking with all manner of offerings. So it's significant for them. It doesn't actually just, well, as we know, just sell hardware. It sells different worlds, it sells the software. So for them, this is also significant because it's going to be driving up the software spend. So as we know, as we just said, Mario Kart World and Zelda, I think this is going to really fuel the content ecosystem as well. So I think it's a really smart move. They went for premium, they made it look great, they've got the bells and whistles, and of course they've got the worlds that they're selling. So Claire, I mean, I know that you've also picked up another launch with respect to another player.
Yes, and this came just days after the Switch 2 launch. So, I mean, obviously it'd been planned for a long time before, but I wonder whether they were influenced by the success, as you say, of Switch 2. But Microsoft has announced a handheld gaming console, which, it's been rumored forever, but was never done before. And I had to check how to pronounce this, but it's the ROG Xbox Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X, which are developed in partnership with ISIS, and ROG stands for Republic of Gamers, but you still have to say ROG apparently, and not ROG. So that's the information for you. But yes, they're both devices will come in at the end of the year. They have, the X version is slightly better, obviously. But the interesting thing is that this is very, very much integrated with their Game Pass strategy. So it's very much about bringing everybody into their overall ecosystem, opening it up to all the games that they have. And we know with their acquisitions that they've done in the recent years, they have an enormous library of games. So it's a slightly different point of view than Nintendo, which is very much about their exclusive first-party ecosystem. This is about expanding the Game Pass universe and adding the handheld element. I think it will be very popular. We don't know yet what the price point will be. I wonder if some of the people who've just bought a Switch are now regretting slightly that they should have waited.
Yep.
There'll be a slightly different set of games, but actually, I don't think there's a huge amount of overlap between the users. So it might be fine. Be very interesting. I was surprised. We said when we talked about consoles last time that we were moving away from hardware. Well, there you go. We're wrong, obviously.
Yeah, well, there we go. Switch 2, and a nice success. Good old Nintendo. It sounds almost old-fashioned, but well, no, that's good. There's sort of something metaversey about some of the things you've been saying today as well. When they're talking about selling a universe, selling a space, selling a whatever, I don't understand it at all. I had a Nintendo Game Boy. I quite liked it, and that's that. Now we have something. Claire, we're going to stay with you because I know you have talked a lot in the past about sports broadcasting. I'm not averse to having a look at a bit of sport, and it's quite interesting how the different platforms handle it. What's good coverage, what's bad coverage. But a new player is emerging. Maybe not a surprise, but maybe you'd like to tell us all about that, Claire.
YouTube has emerged, not as you say, not a surprise, as a sports broadcaster, but in one way that's relatively straightforward and very much in the sort of direction of YouTube becoming a proper broadcaster. They've bought rights. Specifically, they got the exclusive global streaming rights for the 2025 NFL Brazil game. Now, I didn't even know this existed, to be completely honest with you, but clearly it's a big thing. And the key thing is they have started streaming it entirely free on their platform. So this isn't a premium, this isn't a pay-per-view model. This is entirely advertiser-funded model, which they can do because, unlike many of their rivals in this field, they actually have a really extremely efficient global advertising machine that can generate revenues that would compensate for that probably significant investment. So it's the NFL does this. Why does the NFL do this? Is because they want to attract younger audiences. They have kept some rights to themselves, but they also understand that this is the way to reach a much more global, younger audience. So I think it's an interesting thing and a slightly concerning thing for traditional sports broadcaster, and I'm thinking in particular of football or soccer, as our friends in the US call it. We've talked a little bit, for instance, about the French football rights that were with the Zone, but are now nowhere. And YouTube may well be looking at some of these and thinking, yeah, why not? That was one of the stories. But then the other story that I thought was fascinating is that there's a YouTuber, just not YouTube, a YouTuber, so somebody who creates content for YouTube, actually bought the rights to stream French Pro Division 2 rugby for free on YouTube. So this is really weird and interesting because it really shows how complicated how complicated it is to really understand what YouTube is. It is both a channel and a platform where other people can put their content. And yes, they take a share of revenue, but clearly this guy, Tim Cocker, thinks that he can monetize these by showing them free to air on YouTube, again, thanks to the large advertising platform that it has. So I thought two fascinating stories, definitely showing that YouTube, in its many incarnations, will be most likely will start becoming a much bigger player in the sports field. But it'll be interesting to see what they do next, whether other YouTubers start pushing that angle, whether YouTube itself starts bidding for major rights. I don't want to steal Oliver's words from his mouth, but I think this is a story that will run and run. And what did you think, Maureen?
No, I agree. It was always wondering. They've done such a fantastic job at bringing young audiences and older audiences anyway into that kind of around sports. So it's commentary, it's punditry, it's it's things happening before the event rather than in the event, and so it's fascinating to see that they've now opted into the right side. So not only will they have the cultural layer where they know all the audiences, and Gen Z in particular obsesses about sport, memes about sports, reacts to sports, consumes sports. Now they'll have a legitimacy to say, actually, we've got the rights to it live. And of course, that's exactly what streamers like Netflix, Amazon, and Apple are trying to do, where they bought into Netflix with WWE. You've got Amazon with the Thursday Night Football, and Apple with the MLS season pass and the like. So I think it's fascinating what they're doing, and they've got the audience, and that audience isn't
and they've got the global
anywhere.
Advertising,
and they've got the global advertising. Exactly, Claire.
And the products are almost endless. I mean, you start with Division 2 rugby, which is, with no disrespect to professional rugby in France, slightly obscure. Division 2 rugby union, I'm supposing, possibly could be rugby league, but all the sports, all the leagues. There's so many
believe
items.
You said that about Division 2 rugby in France. I am very upset, Oliver.
No, Division 1, of course, but but even one down from the Premiership in England is not that. Anyway, the point being
actually, interestingly, just to compliment on this, the reason he did this, and he didn't buy global rights. This guy, he bought British and Irish rights, and the reason is a lot of British and Irish players playing in Division 2 in France, so there was a sort of logical reason. So those players that are well known because they play in national teams or they have played in local rugby have moved over to France, and so there was a demand by fans to see their games. We have Johnny Wilkinson played in France.
Yeah, not in the Division 2. In Division 2? No.
No, not in Division 2. Yeah. No, in Toulon.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Anyway, there are many products that potentially could be monetized on YouTube. That's absolutely fantastic. Well, Claire, thank you for letting me know what to say. I think that is a story that we are going to have to periodically come back to over a long period of time. Or some other way of saying it. Right. That was great. Very good. All sorts of stuff going on, and lots to keep an eye on in the future. But that, for now, was in the news. Well, what have we now? Regular listeners will know. It's Podmojis. So some very creative and imaginative use of props, and sometimes no props, by Claire and Maureen for your amusement. Although, of course, you can't see them yet until we go on, ironically, we get on YouTube. If we can find a sponsor. But maybe we'll just self-fund. I don't know. I think it's free. Right. Although, of course, you can hear us through YouTube. If you are hearing us through YouTube, that's why that's possible. It's not the picture. That shouldn't be moving. Right, so let's start. And the first Podmoji, I think I'll start with Maureen, is basically the story's Old White Guy Moans. So I'll have to narrow it down.
Very white teeth, I have to say. The picture of this article, he's got crazy white teeth.
Have you guessed who we're talking about?
It's not Tom Cruise.
No, it's not Tom Cruise.
Tom
It's not
Cruise.
me.
Yeah,
no.
This is the grandpa of film himself, Martin Scorsese, and I love this because this is a classic Claire. She found this. She's been traversing the YouTube. The YouTube for fun stories, but this is really funny. This is really interesting, actually. So Martin Scorsese, in an interview recently, said, "Look, I don't go to cinema anymore to see films because people just misbehave. People are just, they just don't know how to sit quietly and watch a film. So I don't go." He says. So one wonders whether or not. Would anyone ever see Martin Scorsese in the cinema? He's got his own probably cinema. Yeah. But anyway, I think he touches on what I think, and I'd love to hear what Claire thinks. I think he's touching on something which is more sort of cultural and probably a phenomenon which exists in the US rather than us polite folks. Us cinema goers in Europe that are more well behaved. We don't throw popcorn, we don't open up our mobile telephones, and we don't start fights. In the cinema. So I think this is all about the cinema etiquette. Now, I'll let Claire sort of comment on whether or not they are behaving very well in France, but I think this is an issue in the US at the moment. People are being quite casual as a cinema goer. They do leave their mobile phones on, and in particular, Minecraft movie mayhem, as it's called, did happen where people just running riot in the cinema. So I think it is just probably particular to the US and not Europe. But Claire, it'd be really interesting to see. And my Podmoji is because I can see Oliver looking at me quite fiercely, and this is my Podmoji. Is
that all there
is?
That just sounds like I've got a new mug kind of thing. Anyway, it's lovely, and congrats.
Like really?
Oh,
really? Claire, over to you.
Well, my Podmoji obviously is eating popcorn.
Yeah, of course.
Can only be that. I think you're being very optimistic, Maureen. I think theatre behaviour in Europe isn't as great as that. Probably not as well as the US. It also depends on what film and it depends on what time of day. And I did once, many, many years ago, take my 4-year-old daughter to a Winnie the Pooh screening, which was quite disrupted by a number of people. Young people, small people running up and down the aisle. So, there's always been that. But yeah, it does sound like grumpy old man speaking. And I think he should probably, I don't know. That didn't feel like his greatest moment, to be honest. I think it's still important to go to movies. I think it's mostly important for people to go to movies who really love movies and who don't behave like that. Yes, of course, there's an etiquette thing. The checking the phone thing is a bit annoying. I did see that when I went to see Sinners. There were people on their phone during the show, and in London, not in the US, and I was a bit annoyed with that. But I think, we also have to learn to live in a community. So, yeah, I don't know. Grumpy old man is sort of what came to mind, to be honest.
I do feel that I have to sort of stand up for the grumpy old man, a much derided demographic, because all I would say as one is people are so bloody annoying. So I think
just in general.
General. Yes, the worst. Yeah. People go away.
Yeah, they are. They're the worst. So I'm sort of with Martin. Good behaviour. My father once smacked someone around the head for bad behaviour in the cinema, and I was and this boy turned around and looked at me as if to say, "You poor bugger, having him as your dad." But it was good, and they'd stop the film when I was growing up. They just stopped the film, and you'd hear this voice boom out from the projection room. "Shut up, or I'm not putting film on." because I was came from Yorkshire.
That's
And
very
that would do
good.
it.
That's
Yeah,
very
they
good.
just
That's discipline for you.
they
Now,
just
what I
turn the
find really annoying if we're going on rants is people who listen to things on their phone without headphones on, which
Oh,
seems to
that's
be a
becoming
thing now.
annoying. It's a
Yeah,
thing. It's a
there
thing.
you
It's
go.
really annoying. That's really
Girl,
it's really
annoying.
odd. Like, why would you do
And
that?
they whiz through TikTok as well, and
Yeah.
so it's not just
here
one
we
sort of
go.
song or piece of music. It's
So
like
now we've got
different
all
ones.
Open the
grumpy
Yeah,
floodgates.
these
people.
are all
Yeah.
grumpy people now. That's so annoying.
Yeah,
I think they're
yeah,
going to start sort of finding people on the tube,
yeah.
What
or there'll be
really?
quiet carriages. I
Oh,
heard
Oh,
quiet
that. I don't know
carriages
if
sounds
it's
right.
I like the quiet,
oh.
but Elizabeth line is very difficult because it's just one long carriage. So
Yeah, I
Oh,
suppose
yeah.
it is. Well, it just zones. My wife, who
zones,
was in
yes.
PR, had a train carriage as a sneeze-free carriage to promote
Sneeze
Claritin.
free.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
cough and
good.
That's
sneeze
very
free. And it
specific.
was no, it
Yeah.
was for Claritin, you see. So she had it all decked out in Claritin, and she made the news or
Ah,
made the Metro. Yeah, because
that's
that was
good.
her PR. It was a stunt, by the way. It was a stunt, you see, for Claritin. I was so proud of her. I think she won an award for that.
Well,
Anyhow, we have to move on
congratulations.
from the talent of my spouse to here we go. Now this one's yes. I will start with Claire and talk about UK's weight in global media.
Yes, there was some stats that came out from Luminate, but we didn't pay for the report, so we don't have the full stats, unfortunately. Luminate people, if you're listening, please send us the full report. But I thought it was interesting anyway. The UK is the sixth largest streaming market in the world. And then the other stat that I thought was interesting was in film, the UK is the second largest home for US production abroad. But then I thought, well, really? So who's the first one? I guess you can guess. Can you guess?
US, isn't it?
What's the first?
Ch- ch-
Oh, it's Canada. It's
China. Oh,
Canada. It's
Canada.
Canada.
Okay, right.
It's Canada and Canada. So the UK is, which has been very vocal about being the home of US film production abroad. Quite rightly, because they are the second biggest. It accounts for 14%, 1/4 of US film shoots overseas. Canada accounts for 60%, 60. You can see why. It's cheaper and it's just round the corner, and it's got great tax incentives, and people can come home for the weekend, actors and talent and stuff, which is very positive. But I was surprised by that. So that's my surprised emoji face.
Oh, those
Did you
eyes,
see that? Did I
like
look really
saucers.
surprised?
You
That
did?
was a good one. That was a good
Yeah,
one. You did
yeah,
look
very good.
surprised.
It's
Yeah.
very,
Because
very
that
surprised.
60% is
It's
enormous.
an
Go
enormous amount.
Canada.
Yeah.
So that was it. That was the news.
That wasn't news. Do we want to stick to the same?
It was a
We might not
okay,
ask
but I
him.
didn't
That's
have a
not
fun
news.
version. That was the point. That was the topic.
The
Yeah,
topic.
The point
yeah,
version.
Yeah.
Maureen, you're also allowed to have a go.
Yes, but equally, we neither of us were sent the report. So, Luminate, if you are listening, please, and we'll do a fine sort of summary of it.
We have a
on
budget,
next episode.
and it's. I'll just look it up. It's a zero. The budget is
Yeah,
zero
exactly.
this week.
That's our budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No. We'll do a bit of public relations. So we'll take a leaf out of your wife's book,
That's
Oliver.
right. Yeah, very
That
good.
we will do some PR for it,
Yeah.
some good PR, and
Yeah.
we'll give some insights. So
Priceless.
other than what Claire has said, which I was also equally surprised by the statistics. Of course, we know the obvious that adolescence, for example, is gaining serious international traction. So let's do a shout out for adolescence. So
Yeah.
well done,
And
adolescence.
unscripted
And
remains,
yeah, exactly.
incredibly popular. UK originated unscripted programming like Bake Off and The Traitors and Love Island and all of these beautiful shows that you're all watching, I'm sure.
What's that sewing one? That sounds awful. I mean, wonderful. The sewing one. Yeah. I can imagine I'm getting very addicted to that. Did you do a Podmoji, Maureen? I suspect you didn't. I need one of my cards. Maybe that's the blue card. The blue card is no Podmoji. Oh,
Yeah,
shades.
no. I was trying to look sort of cool for Illuminate to send us the report.
You've got your bonnets on. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
moving
I
on.
almost forgot. Did I get a red card? Yeah.
No, you don't get red. There's a blue card for
Okay.
no Podmoji. And then I'll think of
okay.
something for the green has got to be slightly more positive. So, anywho, yes, Concord has acquired RKO. How would you Podmojize that, Maureen?
Oh yeah. I think this is amazing. story, an amazing strategic move,
Glasses
and I'm
on.
putting the sunglasses on because it definitely
Again.
because it's
We might as well call these convoluted OGs.
double up, but it's really smart. So as Claire and I have commented on this for a couple of years now about the significance of back catalogues and the value of IP generally in our industry. And lo and behold, Concord has now snapped up RKO, which has some fantastic IP, intellectual property, that is. So it gives now Concord this ability to remake and stage all these fantastic titles, which come up to the tune of 5,000 of them, including Hitchcock's Suspicion. You got Top Hat, Citizen Kane, my favourite. But it's not just about sort of mining the past. It's about rebooting across film, TV, and stage, and that's what's going to happen. So I think this is a wonderful move. Of course, they follow in good footsteps like Candle Media and A24 and Skydance, all looking to control both catalogues and pipelines and distribution. So great move, good move. Sunglasses went on to say, cool dude. It's some good stuff here. Good strategic move.
Very good.
One of the last
Claire?
bastions of great film and great catalogue.
Yeah, great film, great catalog. Interesting move by Concord. Concord is mostly an owner of music catalogs. So they've bought Genesis, for instance, Phil Collins, Mike Rutherford, Downton Music, huge catalog. Interestingly, in 2024, a mystery Latin music catalog, which was a sort of secret deal, which makes me very curious. But it also is acquired record labels. It's got some musicals, but this is a bit of an expansion of their business into films, classic films, which I think makes complete sense and is very smart. Their headquarters are in Nashville, so I feel like I need to be putting my cowboy hat on. Unfortunately, I don't have it with me, but please imagine my cowboy hat on my head. It's a virtual hat. And that's my Podmoji.
And by the position of your hands, it's absolutely gigantic.
It's massive. It's
right.
a sombrero, in fact.
It's a 100-gallon hat.
It gets hot out there. She needs good coverage.
I know.
Sure
I have a
do.
small head. No, I don't have a small head. I have a very big head. All right.
Sure gets hot out there. I'm doing all the voices today. That was great. So lovely. So that's the end of Podmojis. Golly me, well done. That means we're at the end. Gosh, we've done it. Yet again. Great deep dive, I have to say again, and some interesting news going on. The kind of stories we like, because there's going to be follow-up to try and use a different phrase from Claire. And it only remains, sadly, for me to say goodbye. But we have another one planned, you'll be glad to know, which will be our 75th, so our 3/4 century mark. We're gonna meet on the next one. So for now, I will say goodbye, farewell, Claire.
Goodbye, Oliver. Goodbye, Maureen. Goodbye, everyone.
And I shall say goodbye, farewell, Maureen.
Goodbye, Oliver. Goodbye, Claire. And goodbye, everybody.
Until the next time, goodbye.